Hello everyone. The purpose of this video is to show you how to calculate the weighted average cost of capital, or WACC. So that would be lecture 3 in our series. I've taken an example from your lecture slides, and it goes, the total value of a firm is 4 million euros. By total value, we mean the market value of the firm. And it has 300,000 euros in debt. The after-tax cost of debt is 6% and the cost of equity is 10%. And the question goes, what is the weighted average cost of capital of this firm? There are a couple of ways of doing this. One is to use the formula. Here's the formula here. But I like to keep it as simple as possible. So what I've learned is there's a small format and a small calculation which will lead us to the WACC. Now, first of all, let's understand what the market value of the company is made up of. We're told, well, the total value is 4 million euros, and this consists of 300,000 euros of debt. So 300,000 euros of debt. So that leaves us with 3,700,000 of equity. Now, V here stands for the market value, and the reason we take market value is we want an up-to-date value and an up-to-date cost. You remember in class, I mentioned that if we take the balance sheet value, those are calculated on historical cost basis, and historical cost is based on, well, it's based on the past. So this is why we use market value. So V stands for market value. K, well, surprisingly enough, K stands for cost. In this case, the cost of equity is 10%, so I'm gonna write 0.1 here, 10%. And the cost of debt, we're told, is 0.06. Now, if you read the question again, you will see that it is mentioned the after-tax cost of debt. And for that, I will take you back to my previous lecture. So that would be lecture 2 in the series, where we calculated the cost of debt. And I'm going to take this example here. I took an example where the normal interest rate was 12%, and we had to calculate the true cost of debt. And you remember, because of the tax shield, the true cost of debt, so it's 12%, 0.12 multiplied by 1 minus 0.3, which is the tax rate we used, and the actual cost of debt is 8.4%. That 8.4%, we normally refer to this as the after-tax cost of debt, or sometimes we refer to it as the post-tax cost of debt. The 12% will be referred to as the pre-tax cost of debt, right? So in this case here, well, in the question, the post-tax cost of debt or the after-tax cost of debt has already been calculated for us, and that's 6%. Now, the aim is to calculate the weighted average cost of capital, and taking you back to my original lecture, I mentioned that if we have a combination of equity and debt financing in the business, so in our case, 3.7 million of equity, 300,000 euros of debt, our cost of capital, so our cost of raising the 4 million cannot be 10% because that is only the cost of equity. It cannot also be 6% because this will be the cost of debt. So basically we have to find an average between the two, hence the term weighted average cost of capital. And the way I do this is I take 3.7 million in our example. VK stands for, well, V multiplied by K. So in this case, equal 3.7 million multiplied by 10%. So that leaves us with 370,000 euros. Also for the cost of debt, so that would be, we have 300,000 euros of debt multiplied by, well, in this case, the cost of debt is 6%, and that leaves us with 18,000. Now, what I'll normally do is I would sum these two up. So I would add 370,000 and 18,000, and I will get a figure of 388,000. And WACC would be determined by this formula here. So sum of VK over sum of V. So here it goes. Sum of VK, so that's 388,000 divided by, well, sum of V, 4 million. And that gives us a weighted average cost of capital of 9.7%. There you go. That's a simple way of calculating the weighted average cost of capital. In some questions, maybe you won't be given the after-tax cost of debt. Maybe you will be given the pre-tax cost of debt, in which case, well, all you have to do is use this formula here. So the cost of debt will be your borrowing rate multiplied by 1 minus the tax rate. Or in other questions, you might be given the cost of debt, but you would be asked to calculate the cost of equity. And a simple way to do this is to use the capital asset pricing model, or the CAPM. There you go. This sums up the weighted average cost of capital calculation, and I'll see you in the next video.